Katneri. Welcome to tonight's show, Fearless Flight Live. We really like doing this. I'm not just saying that to impress you. We really enjoy this. So we're back again. This, of course, the show is for anybody who has a fear of flying, who knows somebody. I never go beyond a couple of people before they say, "Well, I'm not afraid to fly," but my uncle is, my brother, my wife, my boss, my coworker, whatever. And so it's for all of those people, either you or the people you know, or anybody who just likes talking about airplanes. And tonight we're going to deviate a little bit. We're going to talk about the coronavirus as if no one else is, right? But we're going to talk about I think we have a couple of interesting twists on it. And hopefully, if you're in Arizona and Hawaii and some other places, you knew to start early. That may be Cap Murig's issue. He might have forgot that we don't change our times here. So it was always kind of funny when I was working, especially when I just moved into the area, went to work for the airline in Phoenix here. The first time I was scheduled to fly the morning after the change, I got to the airport an hour early because we always adjust the departures to conform so that it keeps the arrival times outside these time zones the same. So thinking, oh, I got to get there an hour early. Nope, it would have been the same time. So anyway, so enough about that. We're going to talk about air quality and some things about that tonight. You just saw that flash on the side. We do want to make a pitch for our Facebook group. It's active. I try to interact there at least every couple of days just to kind of pick up. I know after the shows, we usually have a lot of traffic there. If you click on that link there, it will take you over there. If you're not a member, we're up over 500. I can't believe it. It seems like just yesterday we were trying to break 100. And we want to get that thing bigger and bigger. And more importantly than the size of it is we want to keep the effectiveness. And it seems to be doing just that. Many of you are joining, so go over there and introduce yourself and let's hear what you're doing. So tonight, a poll question. We want to know if you're flying in the next 30 days. And if so, are you noticing any thoughts or feelings about it? And what's the story you're telling yourself? I just thought of that because I was interfacing with one of the birds of a feather earlier today about that. She was lamenting that she was going to fly, and I just prompted her to say, what's going on and what's the story you're telling yourself. She shared that with me, and then I invited her to do a 15-minute phone call. And believe me, you don't have to wait for an invitation from good old Captain Ron. You can just do that. If maybe we need to make that a little bit more visible, just how to do that. But I know Dieter puts it in the show notes every week there. So
hey, we have a late arrival, but better late than never, right, Captain Eric?
Oh, I heard that sliding sound. Safe. Yeah, it was second base.
Just reviewing stuff and getting ready to put on my Fearless Flight shirt. Did everybody do that thing with their clocks again?
Yes, everybody.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. And when you get to it, there's a note alerting you to that in WhatsApp. So.
Oh, good. That's really starting to get on the last nerve.
So you'll be on time next time. All right. So we covered for you. We badmouth you at the same time, but it just provides us a little opportunity to do that. So sit down, shut up, and keep your feet off the seats. All right.
Got it.
Okay. We just welcomed everybody, told them about the Birds of a Feather group, and we're going to move right into the stuff here tonight.
Let's go to
slide number 4 here. We'll remind everybody of the poll question.
All right.
We'd just like to know who's flying out there and what are the stories that you're telling yourself. Everybody says, I'm freaked out, I'm doing this. That's great to do that. Great that you show up, but go into some detail. Dig down. Okay. That's what we do in the 201 class, which we're going to talk about here at the end of class, which we got coming up on April 25th. You do not want to miss that. But if you got any when you talk about freaked out, share with the group, because you got people out there who have been through that. So when, instead of I'm freaked out about, crossing the pond, when I get onto a flight with a long time there, I worry about going crazy. I worry that I'm going to have a panic attack. Okay. Tell us more about what's going on with you. And that way we can dig down and help you a little bit. We're going to talk about the fair sale in just a minute on Southwest. We're going to talk about a couple of examples of the coronavirus, how it's affecting not only the airlines but human beings, and then we'll give you the highlights for the April 25th class again. So
I'm not making a funny virus joke, but it looks like my computer has been infected by something. So I'm not actually sure what people are seeing.
Right now we have the slide sorter view.
Okay, so if I could get out of there immediately, I will. There we go. It just kind of hung in a loop, and I couldn't.
Okay.
So which slide do you want me to?
If you can, go to number 5.
Okay. So just
this is a cute slide that one of our longtime now fearless flyers, Maria Luna, sent this to me. If we can get it up there, it's basically a bunch of people in an airplane, and over the PA it says, "This is your captain speaking. Today I'm working the flight from home." And people have always said to me, you know, well, we want you to be paid really well and be happy up there because we don't want an unhappy pilot flying our airplanes and not caring. And I said, as long as I'm on board, you don't have to worry about that. And when they start letting us do it from home with the joystick, now like a drone, now you might want to get worried here. So anyway, so thank you for that slide there. Let's talk real quickly about the fair sale, because that's the thing I want to hit once now and once at the end. This is for the 25th. Playing right into our hands. Yes, they are. Southwest Airlines and all the other ones there. Guess what the coronavirus is doing in our favor? It's dropping the number of advanced bookings. So this is the thing. You just got your ticket last week, right, Eric? So
for the first time I buy one early.
Okay, that's still good news. Still good news, because I bought ours as well. And so you just call up reservations, give them your confirmation code, and they'll give you a credit. If you bought it on the internet fair, they won't give you a refund, but they will credit you with the difference. And we got a couple $100 back. So we usually say that the money that you can save by flying early is oftentimes enough to cover your airline ticket. This certainly will do it, because it's $49. I haven't seen a $49 fare anywhere out of Phoenix for about 5 years. So this is a really good deal. And you know how we are. We encourage you to go over, buy the ticket, okay, and then register for the flight. If you get to the class that day, it's not your day to fly, okay? It's okay. You can come back in the future, and we got a special discount for that. And you can preserve your credit with Southwest Airlines up to the amount that you paid for it, and it's good for 1 year from the time you purchase the ticket. So enough said about that. So let's go to the other stuff, and we'll do this. This is all the stuff that you get with if you fly with us that day, and we'll cover this in more detail right at the very end here tonight. So we got the
building public confidence, or do you want to stay at the fair sale?
No, let's go to the confidence one there.
Okay,
so this was another interesting thing. I'm a frequent flyer with Southwest Airlines, so I get news from them and all this. So this was a letter that came out from the senior VP and the chief marketing officer. And so what they wanted to do, or what they're doing, is they're trying to raise everybody's confidence about the special efforts that they're going into to make sure that they can decontaminate the airplanes if there was any chance of having the coronavirus left over from a previous flight. So this doesn't say anything about the day, obviously, you know, when it comes in and moves back out, but overnight, these are the things they're doing. They spend 6 to 7 hours cleaning the airplane every night. They have what's called an enhanced cleaning procedures, and they have a link. If you go onto their website, they have a link. If you look at their blog, they go into detail as to what their enhanced cleaning procedures are, and they implemented those on March 4th. You can see up there. They make a big claim about hospital grade disinfectant and interior cleaner in the cabin. And they say that they're going beyond the standard Center for Disease Control guidelines, which is nice to know. And they talk about a HEPA. Is it HEPA? Is that the way you pronounce that, Eric? HEPA filter.
I think so.
and recirculate air. So we're going to talk just a little bit about HEPA and what that means, because this kind of comes into an old issue. And so I'm going to give you a little history of that. But basically, they use all the air conditioning systems have these HEPA filters, which is not all that different from what a filter you'd use in your home to take out particulates. And so
in Canada, we call those HEPA. Is that the
HEPA? Maybe it is HEPA. That's probably, yeah.
So
probably
maybe the Canadians are different. Who knows?
No, I think you're right. I think it's HEPA.
Okay.
So you can put that next slide up there. So this is a slide that came out about a year ago, or a story that came out about a year ago, talking about air quality during commercial flights. But throughout my career, well, here's when it happened. When did the medium and high bypass engines start coming into production, Eric? Was that like back in the late 70s, early 80s, maybe?
Yes,
Okay.
about the time the 737-300 came on board, if we think we started making the transition to that.
Yeah, with the big fan engines. Okay, so
Sure.
as the engines got bigger, okay, and the weight got smaller per pound of thrust, so they got better and more efficient. They added one other thing, and this came out of the fuel crunch back in the mid 70s with one of the Arab-Israeli wars. I happened to be in the military that time, but everybody just got grounded because the OPEC cut off our oil to the U.S. And so we had to, there were anybody that's old like me, you remember those lines to the gas station. It was just a crisis. So everybody looked into how they could save fuel. The airlines and particularly the jet engine manufacturers, they came up with this idea of recirculation. Not a huge shift in technology or ideas, but when you're in your car, if you didn't know it, with your air conditioner, you can choose regular air conditioning or recirculation. Okay. And we use recirculation almost all the time down here in Arizona because it's so stinking hot. And what it does is it takes 80% of the air that's in the car, in the cabin part there, in the compartment, and it recirculates that so that it gets more efficient cooling cooled air rather than constantly bringing outside air, which it has to cool down from 100+ degrees. Okay, so they got this idea that they, being the engine manufacturers, the engineers, they came up with the same idea. It adds to the efficiency, or it doesn't take away as much of the efficiency of the engine, and so we recirculate too. Then started all the controversy. Then some of the flight attendants, and there's actually still a flight attendant, I think, who has a website out there, and she claims that it's unhealthy. And so it's one of those conspiracy theory things and all that. And personally, I flew for 20 some years, never got a cold or the flu. And so, and I'm not bragging about that, but because we get circulated air from the cabin. 80% of our air up in the cockpit comes from the cabin back there. So this all leads up to this HEPA filter in there, and why that is an issue. This article says a common myth about air travel is if one person is sick on the airplane, and all other passengers will get sick because they're breathing the same air. But thanks to air quality control onboard commercial airlines, that simply isn't true. So, Eric, add your thoughts about that, about the whole HEPA thing.
I completely agree with you, and I've been flying the same planes that you have since you left, and they have radically improved filtration devices besides recirculating the air for engine efficiencies. And we've all been operating that way for decades now. And in fact, we got a release the other day that I thought was interesting. There was an area of high ozone contamination at altitude, and we used to avoid that like the plague, and we still file distances around that to avoid ozone particulates. But it also, the dispatcher made a note that it said the distance of separation from here applies to airplanes without the specialized ozone filters installed, which, as it turned out, in the fleet was none of them. But we also had filters for that to protect us from ozone contamination. And we were routed around this area, but the airlines also have those filters installed. And as you said, we're sharing the exact same air as the passengers are. And I gotta believe now, based on no data or medical expertise or anything else, that with the extreme light loads of passengers in the cabin,
Yeah.
probably better off now than we were then when we were flying a full plane to everywhere, every day, all hours of the day. We're just not sharing air with that many people anymore.
The detail, that's something I didn't even know about the ozone thing. I guess I should have, but I wasn't aware of that. But like you said, the light loads, relatively speaking, and you know, last week I could look for it this week. I saw an article, and it was just masterfully done. They had a seating chart for an airplane, and they had where this particular person who was infected with the coronavirus was sitting, CD COVID-19 or whatever, and they said who's the most likely. And I touched on this last week if you were here, but it was ridiculous. You know, and it showed who's got and the people who were the greatest at risk. This person was sitting on the aisle, so that person was more likely to infect other people because they're more likely to go to the bathroom because that's why they want to sit on the aisle. People sitting in the windows, less likely, and all that. But I mean, it just goes to show you, you know, the craziness that takes us over when something like that happens. And there's no reliable, you know, proof of any of that. And so what Eric's saying is going to be more relevant. It's not the HEPA filter that you need to worry about. It's the people that you come in contact with. So you just use reasonably prudent circumstances. Take Perel, get some Perel if you can find it. Apparently there's a run on Perel out there, and then you know, just
not all industries suffer. Not all industries suffer, because we found that too, and I can speak a little bit to that later because obviously those are part of our preparations. But I want to, Eric, I want to ask you a question that that Susan is asking, and she's saying, how long can they keep a flight on the runway? Like, you know, how long is reasonable time, or is there a cutoff? And
yes, I think 3 hours, and without looking, I would check it to back myself up, but I think 3 hours domestic, 4 hours international. And if we even come close to any kind of that delay, we will turn around and head back after some misfortunes where passengers were basically, I would call it abused 3-4 years ago. I can't remember what it was.
Actually 20 years ago.
No, this is the new deal put in, not 20 years ago.
Okay. Yeah,
because the FAA and the DOT put in new rules that we cannot keep the captive audience longer than that. And not only can we not keep them longer than that, we have to have made that time so that we have turned the airplane around back to the gate, doors open, and the passengers have the opportunity to get off the airplane. And the fines, if we blow that time envelope, are as I recall, $27,500 per passenger if we pop that time envelope of keeping them captive on the airplane without an opportunity to disembark. So we're real aware of that sort of thing if we're taxiing out and we're going to be taking some kind of delay like that, so that we can initiate our turn back to the gate, get the door open, get an offer to get off, because those fines are stiff, and airlines have been hammered with them before, and the DOT will go after those with a vengeance.
And I just looked this up there. Okay, yeah. And the one thing I always like to mention is, unfortunately, you do not get the fine. The fine goes to the FAA. So it says here, if I can pull this up, but it was the original thing for this. Okay, if you lose your check bag. Yeah. Anyway, if the original thing that precipitated this was a snowstorm. Well, there were two of them actually. One was a delay. JetBlue was at Kennedy, and so they had a majority of the operation there, and the other one was in the days of Northwest. Those are the two that I remember. But anyway, very expensive, and dispatch. You got lots of people tracking that airplane or all those airplanes, and when, like Eric says, when they get close, they're sending you back to the gate. Now, the other reason she might have been asking that question, and I'm not sure about that without Dieter clarifying or her clarifying, is that if you're physically on the ground or on the runway, you know, and you're just delayed, you know, and you're not in that area, normally we're not going to go that long, because you're probably going to get into your minimum fuel, right? So talk about that a little bit, Eric. Why that is more likely to come before you get into the just a passenger motivation.
Yeah, we're fueled for various contingencies that we can talk about on a different show for alternate airports if we think we might need them. Sometimes second alternate airports, en route deviations, that sort of thing. And we're almost always have what we call a buffer of 90 minutes of flying time of fuel past what we think we're going to need to get to the destination. But if we anticipate that we're going to have a delay in a departure clearance, delay to go, we're generally aware of that early enough, rather than being surprised with it taxing, that we will not leave the gate and go just to sit out there with the door shut, grinding the engines, because we don't want to waste the gas. We don't want to waste the gas waiting to find out. So it's unusual to get surprised with that off the gate. It happens, but not that often. And if the situation is changing like that, we'll generally stay plugged in with the door open to the gate rather than out on the ramp with an engine running, cutting into what we had for the fuel buildup for that leg, which probably didn't include hours of sitting on the departure ramp.
And we monitor that just like we would a checkpoint along the way, right? If you have left the ground, you look at your minimum fuel, and if you're pressing into that, you got to go back to the gate and top off.
Which happens. I mean, it happens.
Which happens occasionally, and usually it's bad weather, or I saw the night we had the class there, Americans' computers went down, and I don't know whether it was just the reservations computers or whatever. I forgot. I was going to ask you if you had any wind of that, but
boy, I didn't, and we've been really lucky so far in having that system work really smoothly.
About 9:30 that night, the lines were backed all the way down the level 2 there. So anyway, okay. So just kind of recap that: the filters, the HEPA filters, the recirculation of the air. Again, I mean, we sound like broken records a lot of time, but gosh, man, I flew airliners for 30 years and airplanes for 45 years, and the stuff that's out there in the news is so old and worn out from my point of view. It just isn't a factor. Do people get sick on airplanes? Sure. But, I think it's more likely they get sick because they come in contact with the viruses and cold virus and stuff.
Do you still have this? I'm sorry. Do you still have the slide you put up last week of the bird flying the airplane and the nervous passenger next to it? Do you still have that slide? Can you
I don't. Maybe
or can Dieter find it?
I can do my best to look for it, but it's not in this. It's not in that.
Okay, don't worry about it.
We'll get it for the next one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So the thing about what I've understood about the COVID-19 virus too is that it doesn't have a long life in the air. You're very unlikely to get it that way. It comes in contact, and particularly if you touch your eyes, your face, your mouth, things like that. So, okay. Next thing up is and this will bring us to the review on the takeoff 201 class, the 301 class coming up. Is Dieter's had some experiences. He is planning a trip this Thursday, headed over to the Orient. And so if you want to just share with people the booking and rebooking stuff that you've been going through.
But not before I happily share Susan's comment that says, "Wow, Ron, how old you are."
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, in case I have
I love it, Susan.
This is Susan Malachico.
Yes, we're glad you're. Yeah.
I count on you, Susan. If you don't show up every week, it's like a week without Susan is a week without sunshine. So thanks for being one of our regulars out there.
Well, and speaking of sunshine, so my wife Rebecca and I, by the way, Rebecca was a fearful flyer. We're heading over at this point, fingers crossed, on Thursday, going from Toronto and through Tokyo, Japan to Bangkok, Thailand. So, and we're going there. We're not only, we're often talking here on the show about, fear flying as a process, and working through it requires, attention and diligence and practice. And so we're going to Thailand to do some of our own work and, personal development, and also enjoying being with
Yeah, have
people.
some fun, hopefully.
Yeah. So, but I will say that the last 8 days were an absolute roller coaster that included ditching our previous flights that went through China, through Shanghai, because Thailand, the government, first put some measures in place, posted it on Facebook, then took it off of Facebook after a few hours. Cathay Pacific and all the other carriers were inundated, like their phone system and computer system crashed actually, because they use Hong Kong as a major hub, and that was declared a major disease zone. And so lots of flux, you don't really know what's happening. And based on the best information available to us, we have chosen to fly through Japan instead, who at this point isn't on any lists of concerns or something of that matter. So it's a huge. I read in February alone, the airport in Bangkok, flights, arrivals, and takeoffs dropped by 44.3% in that month of February. So, Thailand is a country that is about 28% of the GDP is tourism, and it just disappeared because most of the tourists are actually Chinese. And
Yeah.
the hubs that they declared as danger zones are the major hubs around, Singapore, Hong Kong. Air Canada isn't flying. I know United isn't flying, and American Airlines has canceled all the flights to Hong Kong and stuff. So there is really a lot less demand, right, for flights, and it's also harder to get flights to these places because you're really limited in your choices.
So we'll keep our fingers crossed. You at least get a whole row of seat to yourself.
Yeah.
And maybe an upgrade.
No, I wouldn't say no to any of those things. And because that'll be the longest flight that Rebecca has ever been on, like 14 hours to Japan. So I know Sue, our strategy wizard and just great soul here at FearlessFlight, that she flew to Japan, I think, a couple of times, right? Because her dad was stationed there or something, and so it's
Okinawa.
Yeah, I remember she told me that it's a long flight, so we're preparing, and I want to speak to that. So we don't use masks. Like, we decided against them based on the empirical scientific evidence that's out there. And also, while we are using hand sanitizers, and we flight attendant Diane, we're bringing our own Lysol wipes. And that's just good, common sense in a time when there, is a heightened, I'm going to say, opportunity to contract something that you might not even realize that you got it, because that's the real problem of the virus. Is one, it's a long incubation time, and two, the symptoms for 81% of the people who contract it are so mild, nobody goes to the doctor. It's less, it's a lot less than influenza, for example, in terms of the symptoms. And that's both the good news and the bad news. The bad news in this case is that people don't even realize that they contracted it. So, and that's how it's spreading so quickly, because people, with SARS, also a coronavirus, and that was really big in Toronto and Canada. People got really sick really quickly
and died. When they died before they could transmit it as fast.
So that contained in many ways the ability to spread.
The fatality rate was self-containing of sorts. So anyway, well, we wish you well, and
thank you.
We may.
Well, if all goes well, I will be on the show on Tuesday from
for the next month, possibly.
we were hoping. I'm okay with an extra 2 weeks in right on the Gulf of Thailand, so I can.
Peter, I'll tell you and Rebecca this: have warm clothes available in the cabin. It's tougher to control the temperature when there's no bodies back there.
Yeah, right.
That's a great suggestion.
Yeah, don't show up with aloha shirt and flaps, or it's going to be a really long 14 hours.
Yeah, we can always gauge the complaints from the flight attendants on either more heat or less heat, depending on how full the airplane was in the back.
Yeah.
The more the cooler was. So, okay. Last thing related to coronavirus, I titled this slide "Loss of Public Confidence," and it's something that's been in the news. The stock market, the huge drops, and then it recovered again a little bit today, I guess. But it really speaks to the issue of fear, and in this case, worried about that you'll be the last one to sell your stock, and the value of your portfolio will go down, and all that. Eric and I were talking a little bit about this the other day. It's similar dynamics to fear flying. It's a perception of danger or hazard or whatever. In this case, a loss of value, people panic, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, it to some degree, it perpetuates itself. And you can see that this is what goes on. So, if people would just hang in there, and not worry about being the last one to take their money out, it would come and it would go with probably not much notification or notoriety, but the way we are as human beings, this is what we do. So, okay.
Well, as you like to talk about it in class, and many of our viewers are aware of it, with the amygdala in the brain driving fear and reaction, the same thing was happening in the market with computer-based trading that cannot think. It's an autopilot driving with algorithms driving the trading, and when stuff
are like 80% of the transactions are automatic now, right? Pretty much.
Exactly. So you start a waterfall like that, and unless like happened yesterday, unless you shut off the trading, the autopilot's going to keep driving it, and that's what happened.
And it is same part of the brain that drives the fear there. So, okay.
And I think I just want to say one thing about that, because it's so important. A lot of the people that that stick with us and work through the process and become successful, because that's really what will happen if you stick with the process and keep practicing, then realize and give us feedback that it didn't just resolve their fear of flying. It also gave them confidence and abilities to manage their emotions in other areas of their lives. So there is like all these benefits, so to speak, from really making a commitment to saying, hey, I have been afraid to fly for average numbers 10 years. This is really the year where I'm gonna get over my fear of flying, and there is a process involved. And wherever you find yourself, we hope that we have something of value to you on that journey. But the key is that process also works in other areas of our lives, and we get that feedback very often from people.
Speaking of value, the fear flying research study, we still have people steadily filling that out and joining us. We're going to do a webinar, and if you want to attend that webinar and look at how you and all your other fearful friends are feeling about fear flying, fill out the survey. And there'll be a link in the show notes there. It takes about 10 minutes for most reports to do that. And I think you'll find it interesting in and of itself just to take a look at what the criteria is, or what the issues are for people, and some data that goes along with that. Okay, last thing to sum it up before we leave here is the Clear for Takeoff 201 and 301 classes coming up on Saturday, April 25th. I've already made one shout out for man, if there's ever a time to do it, this is the class, because the fare sale that's going on at Southwest, you never know how long that's going to last, but I would jump on it. $49 fares each way to Las Vegas is incredibly low, And I can pretty much guarantee you'll never see that again. So that makes it almost a no-brainer for doing that, for at least getting the tickets and flying with us. It is a transforming experience for the people who do take the class. It's going to be, we're going to hold the class on Saturday, April 25th. We'll be holding it at a local hotel here, show up around 8 o'clock in the morning, and we'll have about 4 to 4.5 hours of classroom content, including a mock flight, which Eric and I put some of our play clothes on, and we pretend like we're actually leading you on a flight. It's a great way to simulate what we're going to do in the afternoon. And the goal of the class is to get you ready, whether you fly with us in the afternoon or whether you, for your next flight, to get you ready to and prepare you for all stages of your flight. And that's everything from the TSA, the gate, the closing, the turbulence, and all that stuff. So we're going to give you, and what you need confidence that you can manage your anxiety. That's becoming more and more the issue. Some people are still bugged by the technical aspects of flying. So we're going to educate you about those. But most importantly, we're going to give you the confidence that you're going to be able to manage whatever comes up for you. And you get the tools to recognize, regulate, and replace your triggers that cause your anxiety in the first place. Triggers are those things that activate that part of your brain that thinks that you need to be ready to fight or to flee. And once you realize that airplanes are you have the confidence that planes are safe and you're going to be safe, it's an altogether different experience for you. So consider coming out there. If you do fly with us, or if you go to the class and you decide to fly with us that day, the bonus is that we have another event this year, or this class that we're just starting, because we have a lot of people that usually come in from out of town. We wanted to kind of welcome them, and many of them get a stay at the hotel over there and get a deal at the hotel. So we're gonna have a little social the night before. We have to go out and prepare the room anyway. So if you want to come over and just rub elbows with me and Dieter and Eric and the rest of the staff, we'd love to have you. If you're coming in from out of town, or if you want to just have a chance to come over and meet us, it really does kind of break the ice for the following morning if you have a little bit of anxiety that's building. And when you walk in the room, then you feel a little bit less like a stranger. So you don't have to do this, but it's our gift to you to come and socialize with us that night at the hotel. And all the details are in the sales page, or the page on the internet, and the frequently asked questions out there. So, okay. And the big thing, if you don't fly with us that day, you can come back and fly again in the future. We have a discount rate for that. And so if it's not your day to fly, no big deal. We'll just
if you haven't mentioned that, the important thing is, if you get that deal from Southwest, let's just say you're thinking about the class, and but you're not really sure, or you're actually at this point really not certain at all that you're gonna fly, get the $49 fare.
Yeah.
Because here's the deal: if and when you decide on Saturday, after you have been with Captain Ron, Captain Eric, Sue, Diane, and myself, if after that you decide that it's not your day to fly, you actually get credit for the airfare. And I know Captain Ron mentioned it before, but this is really important, because in a way, this is a commitment. This shows you that you're committed to the process. And it was never easier to commit when it's just $49 one way. So
yeah, and we'll talk about that, and then we'll wrap up here. In that, the hardest thing for us has been to convince people that haven't flown for years that not only should they come and go through this class and it's going to be successful, because every one of you out there doesn't think it's going to work. Everybody comes like that. But worse than that, why would you want to buy a ticket? Why would you want to spend money for something that's not going to work? It just isn't the case. It is such a transforming experience for people. And it's a credit to you all showing up and doing the work. And it's a great time. We use a lot of humor. We have a lot of fun. And by the time we actually get to the flight, it's almost anticlimactic. And by the time we get on the ground at Vegas, ready to turn around, all of you are impatient and you want to get on that thing, get home and get on with your lives. And that's really music to our ears, because we love it when we watch that transformation there. So
let me throw one more thing in, Ron.
Okay.
Besides the ticket being nearly free, number two, we're not likely to have a lot of company on this flight yet, with the bookings being off.
Yeah,
and so we're going to be able to pay
almost like a charter.
A lot of personal attention to everybody who goes with us that we're not always allowed to provide, because we're going to be able to freely move around and have our group together and talk with people on both legs, and we don't always have the opportunity like that. This is going to be a real good deal in terms of being able to accommodate everybody.
Yeah, Southwest is great. They treat us great. Sometimes we have really fun flight attendants, and I won't even tell you some of the things that they've done for the class when we do that. So anyway, all right. So once again, we come to an end here. Thanks for joining us this week. This has been Fearless Flight Live with Captain Ron, Captain Eric, and FO and Chief Technical Officer Dieter Staudinger. We're going to be back again next week with another episode, and hopefully Dieter's going to have an uneventful trip to Thailand, and he'll check in over there. So thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great week, and see you next week.
If anybody is able to glean the relationship between toilet paper and the COVID-19 virus by next week,
no, we'll save that for next week. That's your research.
And send it in, because I want to know, and
that's
can't
your
figure
project.
it out.
Yeah, you are the chief researcher on that project.
Not presenting itself.
All right. We'll see you
All
guys.
right.